Everyone in class laughed when the photos came back, until she saw hers. Same name, same pose. But the girl in the photo wasn't her. Lighter skin, straight hair, a version of her that didn't exist. The laughter stopped when she asked one question. Who decided I should look like this? What began as a simple school memory turned into a story that made headlines, and forced an entire community to face an uncomfortable truth. Because sometimes, the picture that's meant to capture you ends up erasing you. Before that picture day, her life was quiet, ordinary even. She was the kind of girl who always arrived early, braids tied neatly, lunch packed with care, sneakers scuffed from running laps during gym. She loved drawing, loved music, and laughed too loudly when her friends told jokes that weren't even funny. Teachers called her polite. Her mother called her sunshine. But there was always a small distance, the kind that people pretend not to see. The way some classmates reached out to touch her hair without asking. The comments about how pretty she'd be if her skin were lighter. The subtle pauses when she walked into a room. Little things. Tiny scratches that never really healed. That morning, she had worn her favorite yellow sweater, the one her mom said made her glow. She smiled wide for the camera, believing maybe this year, her photo would finally show her as she truly was. For her, picture day wasn't just about a photo. It was about belonging, a small piece of proof that she was part of something bigger, that she belonged in this place that often reminded her she didn't quite fit. She didn't know that behind that camera, behind that forced smile, something was already being decided for her. And when that decision came back printed on glossy paper, it wouldn't just change her photo. It would change the way she saw herself and the people she thought she could trust. When the photos were finally handed out, the room buzzed with excitement. Laughter echoed, paper crinkled, and names were called one after another, until hers. The moment the envelope touched her hand, something inside her stilled. Maybe it was the silence that followed. Maybe it was the way her friends stopped mid-laugh when they saw the picture inside. First, she thought it was a mistake, a mix-up. Maybe someone else's photo had been slipped into her envelope. But there it was, her name printed neatly at the bottom. And the girl staring back at her looked nothing like her. The skin lighter, almost pale. The curls gone, replaced by smooth, straight hair that caught the light just right. Her nose, her lips, subtly altered, softened, reshaped to fit an image she never chose. Her breath caught. The room blurred. Someone whispered, "Wow, she looks better." Another giggled. "They really fixed her up." She didn't speak. She just stared, as if the longer she looked, the more she'd recognize the person on the page. But she didn't, because that wasn't her. When she took it to her teacher, the woman smiled politely, brushing it off. "Oh, honey, it's just lighting. The camera does that sometimes." But it wasn't the camera. And deep down, the teacher knew it too. Later that day, she saw the yearbook committee's post on social media, the same edited photo glowing on the screen. Hundreds of likes and comments praising how professional and clean the class photos looked this year. She scrolled through, her chest tightening, until she saw it. The photographer tagged, the school's account reposting her face, their version of her, spreading faster than she could blink. Her mother noticed it that evening. The smile faded from her face as she whispered, "This isn't my baby." She called the school the next morning, demanding an explanation. They apologized. They said it must have been automatic editing software. But the tone, that cold, practiced tone, told another story. At school, whispers followed her. "Why is she making it a big deal? It's just a picture. She should be happy they made her look better." Each word cut deeper than the last. For the first time, she began to feel invisible, erased in plain sight. The photo wasn't just a mistake anymore. It was a message. A week later, the local newspaper picked up the story. Then, a TV reporter. The school panicked, issuing statements about inclusivity and unintentional editing errors. But no apology could undo the moment she realized the truth, that even in a photograph, she was expected to fit into someone else's definition of beauty, of normal, of acceptable. And while the school scrambled to protect its image, she was left facing her own. Printed, altered, and published for everyone to see. Because sometimes the world doesn't burn your identity all at once. Sometimes it erases you one pixel at a time. By the time she walked into the school auditorium, the air felt heavy. Reporters filled the seats meant for parents, cameras clicking, flashes burning her eyes. The school had called a community meeting, an attempt to quiet the outrage that had spread far beyond their town. But the moment she stepped on that stage, silence took over. She stood behind the podium, small against the glare of the lights. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. "I didn't come here to be fixed," she said softly. "I came here to learn." Every eye in the room stayed on her, waiting for her to break, to cry, to apologize for speaking at all. But she didn't. They said it was just editing, just lighting, just a mistake. But tell me, why do all the mistakes make people like me look less like ourselves? Gasps filled the room. The principal shifted uncomfortably, clutching the microphone. But she kept going, her voice gaining strength with every word. "I grew up believing my skin was beautiful. My hair was mine. And yet, one picture made me feel like I needed permission to exist. You turned me into a version you could accept, then told me to be grateful for it." Her words cracked, raw and unfiltered. "That picture isn't the problem. It's the proof." The auditorium was silent. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Her mother, sitting in the front row, held her breath, tears sliding down her cheeks, pride trembling in every line of her face. And in that stillness, something shifted. For the first time, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel erased. She felt seen. The principal finally stepped forward, voice trembling. "We never meant," she interrupted. "That's the thing. You never mean it, but we always feel it." The crowd erupted, some clapping, others crying, and many just staring, unsure what to say, because sometimes the loudest truth isn't shouted. It's the one spoken by the person everyone tried to silence. The days after the meeting felt quieter, not because the noise had stopped, but because she finally could hear herself again. The school issued another statement, promising revised editing policies and diversity training. The photographer's contract was suspended. People online called her brave. Others called her dramatic. But she didn't read the comments anymore. For the first time, she looked at that photo, the edited one, and didn't cry. She simply placed it in a box and wrote one word across the top. Proof. Because that's what it had become. Proof that something small, something as simple as a school picture, could reveal the quiet violence so many learn to live with. The violence of being told to change, soften, shrink, just to be accepted. She started speaking at local schools, sharing her story with younger students who had faced the same kind of invisible editing in their own lives. Kids who straightened their hair for class photos, who avoided the sun, who erased parts of themselves to fit into someone else's frame. Her voice became what the picture tried to erase, and that became her power. Months later, when yearbook season came around again, she walked into the photo room with the same yellow sweater, the same curls, and the same radiant skin. But this time, she didn't smile for the camera. She smiled at it, because she finally understood. Being seen isn't about how they frame you. It's about how you refuse to disappear. And somewhere, in classrooms just like hers, there are still kids waiting for picture day, hoping their reflection won't be changed to fit a world too afraid of who they are. So maybe the question isn't what happened to her picture. Maybe the question is how many more faces will we keep editing before we finally face ourselves?